Let the roundtable discussion begin, as I like to say. So you can go ahead. We're going to go through actually just a little housekeeping rules again, just so if you are having any questions, you know how the rest of this discussion is going to go. So some frequently asked questions that we've been getting is my sound on? We are unmuting you all right now. So if you would like to speak, feel free to unmute yourself and then talk, and then we do ask that you remute whenever you are not in the discussion so that you can hear your attendees. How do I ask a question? So we have a Q&A box. If you want to go ahead and submit your questions there, we can look there. We also have a chat that we're monitoring. I can see the Q&A. Luke will be monitoring our chat for you, so we'll have those options. In addition, you can just go ahead and contribute. You can raise your hand. You can speak that way. Also, if you really are enjoying the content, you're hearing what your peers are saying, you want to go and reference this at home, never fear, we'll go ahead and send this PowerPoint afterwards. We'll also get into next steps, but I am just, again, I want to roll right into the next conversation. We've already been hearing some great things, and I don't want to lose momentum here. So most of you went ahead and filled out a survey. You received a survey where we talked about specific discussion questions, right? And you guys voted, your voices have been heard, and you said that you wanted to talk about scheduling based on COVID capacity, social distance restrictions, things of that nature. You want to talk about planning for different modalities, online, on premise, hybrid. You want to talk about mitigating risk that impacts students and faculty. So let's dive in, let's ask those questions, let's hear some answers. In addition, we'll have some other answers and questions for you that you can weigh in on. Again, we'd love to see answers in the chat or the Q&A. So scheduling based on COVID capacity, social distance restrictions. I would love to hear, do any of you want to share your experience in scheduling for social distancing this coming fall? And this is that time where we wait those 7 seconds and see who speaks up first. But I know that our Texas partners are very boisterous, so I'd just love to hear your answers here.
Well, I'll go ahead and speak first. Hi, everyone. It's Christy Roberts from Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi. We rescheduled our fall 2019 based on the COVID capacity of social distancing. We went through round and round. You know, our first instinct was to do that 50%, and we realized that wasn't going to work. So we did our traditional walkthrough of classrooms. I just had a little bit more people helping me this time around. And so what we did is we went to every single classroom, and lucky for us, we have 60 classrooms, so it wasn't too hard. But in the Texas heat, you know, that is not the most fun sometimes, but it was okay. So we went through each classroom and we measured, you know, 6 feet around, and we looked at what our capacities were looking at. And we were looking at probably about a 28% fill of our classrooms. And we knew that that was not going to work for our modalities that we were looking at. We had a directive from the provost to have at least 25% of our classes meeting face-to-face, 50% meeting in some blended or hybrid format, and then 25% in online only. And so we're looking at it. So we went back and looked to see, okay, how can we increase it while continually looking at the social distancing? So we used, started looking at plexiglass options. So that's what we did, and that we were able to increase our capacity by 10%. So now we're looking at, well, still not the best, and definitely not the most fun way to schedule, but our classrooms are now meeting an average about 38 to 40% of our classrooms. So what we did is we created these alternative room configurations in Ad Astra, and then we rescheduled based on those COVID capacities. And so really looking through it, thankfully, y'all all know that I love the optimizer. The optimizer allowed me to optimize based on those new capacities, and we were able to reschedule fall all in a day, and looking at those modalities and, you know, saying, okay, how can we make this work? A lot of our classes did go into a blended, what we're calling a rotating hybrid format, meaning if Tara and I are taking a Monday, Wednesday, 2 to 3:15 class, I will be in the class on Mondays and Tara will be in the class on Wednesdays. And so departments only needing classrooms that could fit half of their enrollment. So really looking at that, and I can successfully say we met our targets. We're offering about 40% of our classes in a face-to-face format, and that does include the blended rotating face-to-face. As I mentioned, we're hitting about 20% of the traditional hybrid meeting, only meeting one day a week. Still classes are still being happening, and about 20, I'm trying to think of that percentage I really got, 20-25% of online. I know that does not equal 100, but just really just looking at that, and we're constantly working at that. We're now instituting policies where people want to change the modalities. We are looking at it is out of the college hands. It's actually at the provost level, looking to see about how they can be scheduled, and really looking at our rooms. And now comes the fun part of creating room charts per se, which we found out that no one on our campus has an electronic format of a room design. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. And really in having that so people know when they walk in, it's an easy way for students to look and see where they're supposed to be, and they feel safe in the classroom.
Wow, thank you, Christy. We got so excited we didn't even do introductions. So I'm going to go ahead and have you say what university you're representing or college, and then what your role is as well. And then we're going to actually dive into that question a little bit more and see how our peer institutions are doing it. For all of you that don't know me, my name is Tara Hansen. I'll be your moderator today. I'm an Ad Astra team member and just really excited to be walking you through these questions. So Christy, go ahead and say what you do and your university.
Yes, my name is Christy Roberts, and I get to be the Associate Registrar at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi down in South Texas. And a big part of my job is Ad Astra, everything Ad Astra, scheduling, Platinum Analytics. We're moving towards Monitor and Align, and a bunch of other things that I don't really even know at this time of day, thanks to COVID.
So you said a couple things there. You talked about your hybrid scheduling, your rotating hybrid scheduling. You talked about the electronic room designs. I'd love to dig into that piece and see if there's anyone else that's in attendance today that is going with this rotating hybrid schedule. There's a question in the chat about how we're setting up hybrid classes, mostly online with some face-to-face meetings, and some of these classes are showing up as events. So wondering if anyone has a clear policy on how these classes and meetings should be built out. So if anyone wants to dive in there, talk about what their own college or university is doing and how they should build this out.
This is Vicki Bond with University of Texas at Tyler, and I basically just schedule events on campus, but I've been working with the registrar's office because we are also doing the hybrid, kind of as Christy described, but some of the classes like labs or just different classes that they need 2 rooms. And so since PeopleSoft only allows 1 room to be in PeopleSoft, then they're scheduling 1 through the sections tab, and then they're creating another room through events. So in the past, we didn't encourage that just because of the coordinating board reports. But I think that they've kind of slacked up on that this year due to COVID, that they're not going to be looking at utilization closely because of this. So that's kind of how we're using it. So I'm seeing on the event side a lot more courses being scheduled as events. So I had to go into with the same concept of going in and changing the room, adding in room configurations, and then make that the default in order for events and courses to be able to see what the max attendance is with social distancing.
Wow, thank you, Vicki. That is really good insight. It looks like a couple of our other partners are also doing similar things. Is anyone approaching this differently? Perfect. I'm assuming that if we're being silent, we're all going with that approach. So that's great. I did want to then pose the question. So now that we've talked about what a few campuses are doing. Do you find things that are working really well? How are you planning for this social distancing to influence not only the fall, but then your spring scheduling cycle? Anyone want to take that?
This is Vicky again, and I can't stand silence, so somebody's gonna have to talk or I'm gonna sing. I'm enjoying staying home. How's that? Doesn't have anything to do with your question, but
Yeah, well, no, that's great. We are in and out, so I'm sure that a few of you, I know that some of you are on campus, some of you are not. So I hope that you're enjoying. Is everyone enjoying this virtual landscape? Do you prefer being on your campus?
Hi there, this is Mossy with UTRGV. I'm also in South Texas. Yes and no, but I did want to post a question for everyone. I work at the student union, so we use Ad Astra as our scheduling software in collaboration with our registrar's team. So they take all of the academics and then we use it for events. So I'm just interested to see what folks are doing as far as events, what that is looking like in your campus, and I guess the impact on your campus life.
Yeah, great question. For all my event people that are on the line, what are you guys doing? What are you seeing?
this is Vicky again. We are currently hosting events starting in the fall. Now, I don't know if that's going to change with the number of cases that are rising in Texas, but I have about 20 use agreements that I'm just sitting there because I don't want to create them and then not have to, and then have to void them. But once again, it's social distancing. We've created drawings that show this is the number of people that you can have. Food can be buffet as long as somebody is serving it and they're gloved and masked. We do require masks on campus unless you are in your office. So it's gonna be interesting how it's gonna work this year, for sure.
Yeah. This seems to be an area where we see a couple of different practices. So some hosting events. We see Susan from Collin College. They've canceled all of their events to outside vendors. Some other ones are on hold. Everything's being done online. Is there anyone else that is still meeting on campus, hosting events on campus that's in attendance today? Great. Okay, and our chat is bustling, and it seems like it's getting a little bit of traction. A couple of you are enjoying not having 100-mile round trip commute to campus. Wow, no one can say that you're not dedicated to your service of helping our students.
Hey, did y'all hear my phone ring? Hey, I've got a question real fast. This is Vicky again. I know it was quiet, but out of the 55 institutions that we have that's on this discussion, is UT Tyler seriously the only people in the fall going to be holding events for external clients?
Hello, Vicky, Mossy with UTRGV. I think you may be. For us, we've postponed live face-to-face events for now. South Texas, unfortunately, we are making the news for the increase in cases, so we're holding back. We're definitely encouraging everyone to go virtual when they can. And then for some events, even for our welcome week, we're really reconsidering and postponing all of that until, maybe October or so. So again, we're holding out.
This is Mary from University of Houston Clear Lake. As far as external events, right now we are not doing external events. Now some internal events, depend on the event, have to fill out a special form where our safety department have to approve it first, and then they will then put it into Ad Astra. So only internal events for us right now, external, no.
Hi, this is Missy Wells. I'm with the provost office at Houston Baptist University, and I do the academic side, so the classroom scheduling, and we are working mainly from the hybrid format. So all of our classes will be Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, with the 50% of the class meeting in on each of those days, except for we have a lot of graduate classes that meet 1 day a week. And so for all of those, we have worked the campus to find socially distanced space so that those classes can meet with full enrollment for the one class meeting that they meet. As far as events, Hunter Neasley is our event person, and she is hard at work right now. HBU does plan to host some events right now, but they're all in socially distant spaces, and they are going through, just like you said, the whole process of looking at what the event might be and if it can be really social distanced and can follow the guidelines and all of those things. So a lot of that, everything is still fluid at HBU. We're still making decisions about things and trying to make sure everyone's protected. We will require masks on campus in the fall.
Wow, a lot there. So it looks like our chat's really blowing up here. It seems like there are a couple that are actually hosting events in the fall. Concordia, UT Health Houston, obviously mandating masks and having those social distancing to keep people safe. I am curious, for all of you that are not having events in the fall, how are you putting events virtually to ensure that student experience? What are you doing for your students there? For those that are hosting events, I'm assuming that obviously you're following social distance guidelines and things of that nature. Has that been challenging? Have you been using the optimizer to do that? What's the best practice there? So that's 3 or 4 questions. Feel free to take any of those.
Hi, my name is Jessica Barnes. I'm from Alamo College District. Currently, we're doing online webinars and events with our students. We've actually hosted through our webinar feature, we've hosted over 200 events since we've been on, we've been out of the campus. We actually are having no events this fall and probably not till the spring. We're only at 10% for our fall. So I know Vicki was talking about events coming up in the fall, and it makes me really nervous to see what's going to happen, but currently Alamo Colleges is not having any events, but we are doing the virtual.
Great. Would anyone else like to weigh in before we switch topics here? Okay, well, I really am appreciating just the engagement and hearing all of your voices. It's great to see people that are, either in the comforts of their home or their office, but weighing in. On the academic side, so Christy had touched more on like the academic scheduling. What are you doing for scheduling based on, COVID capacity for academics? I'm just gonna go ahead and ask that question and then we'll transition to a different topic. But I'd love to hear other universities or colleges, what they're doing. Okay, this is great. So one of us that is in this chat here had mentioned UT Tyler, that they are using a hybrid model as well as online synchronous sections, as well as face-to-face with a reduction in 50% room capacity. So it seems like that is best practice right now. Generally have a decentralized scheduling system, but for the scheduling of classroom space in fall 2020, they've gone to a centralized scheduling practice to ensure maintaining that room capacity. So that's another great question. I know some of our partners have centralized scheduling practices, others have decentralized scheduling practices. Have you noticed that this pandemic has changed your decentralized scheduling practices to a centralized scheduling model? Would anyone like to speak on that topic?
I think this is Vicki again. I think our academic people, I think it kind of flip-flopped. Our departments typically put in all of their courses into rooms, but and I think they did that. But now I think our registrar's office is having to go in and completely redo it. I'm not sure if they're using the optimizer or not. I've been encouraging them to do it, and I know in some instances they do, but it kind of flip-flopped. It was decentralized, but now they had to pull it back in and kind of do it all themselves.
Hey, this is Caleb with Ad Astra. I'm a consultant here at Ad Astra and been working with some of you all in Texas schools. One of the trends that I've seen is it relates to this centralized, decentralized conversation is that in a lot of cases, historically, the online offerings have been in kind of a centralized scheduling model where those online offerings, specifically for schools that haven't had maybe a breadth of online choices, in creation of those, it really does come from more of a centralized entity. And thus, as we move to this online model, it has naturally kind of swayed itself to being more centralized, at least for 3 or 4 schools that I've been working with as the online folks are making those decisions. So I think, there's definitely some of the larger schools in Texas that we work with that are talking about potentially moving to a more centralized model coming out of COVID, just because this maybe is an opportunity for us to look at what a more centralized model does from a scheduling perspective as we think about all of the different complexities that COVID adds. We're able to make those decisions a little bit more informed. The local source of knowledge is that centralized unit. So I think part of what's happening here is a centralization just because it has to be due to previous practices.
Thanks for that insight, Caleb. We definitely appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and do a little pivot here since we've talked about this scheduling based on COVID capacity to the real question of the hour. And that is, well, if I can flip my slide here, the real question of the hour is Buc-ee's or Quick Trip? For all my Texas people, I'm so curious. Our consultant has mentioned these 2 options, so I just wanted to ask you all that. Yes, it looks like our chat's saying Buc-ee's. Anyone for Quick Trip?
I'm saying this past week I was on vacation and my parents came in, my mom and my sister came in from Iowa, and we are about 45 minutes from Buc-ee's, and they drove 14 hours down from Iowa, and we had to make a 45-minute trip to Buc-ee's there and then 45-minute trip back. They could care less about Quick Trip.
Wow. Well, that is great. Like I said, we just want to hear your voices. So we're going to be asking some more fun Texas-centric questions throughout this time, as well as really digging into this discussion on events and academics and all things schedule. Obviously, I've heard that Buc-ee's is a staple. It's worth the drive. Huge if you haven't been there. I'm sure if you're in Texas, you have. So thought that was pretty cool. I have noticed that in this chat, we're seeing a lot of questions about if virtual events are being tracked in Astra schedule. I'm seeing that they have made a virtual campus. So some universities and institutions, colleges are making virtual campuses. Does anyone want to explain like how they're doing that, what that looks like for the rest of our attendees?
Man, I hate to be the only one talking. Not really. So we had camps on campus, and then they ended up getting. This is Vicki, by the way. They ended up getting canceled, and some of them went virtual. And so, in order to keep it in Astra, so that we could run reports off of it, and to show that we did have camps this summer, then we went in and created a virtual campus. And then created, virtual rooms for the virtual campus, and then assigned the events to the virtual room. So it was really, really simple to do. You just add that in there. So I guess, is that what you were kind of wanting to know?
Yeah, Vicki, that's great. Anyone else? Okay. A couple have created virtual rooms throughout the system based off of Zoom webinar spaces as well. So something to take for consideration. A couple different options. UT Tyler voicing in that they're in good shape with the current fall 2020 schedule. taking the scheduling of rooms at 50% capacity reduction for social distancing within the registrar's office, and keeping everything streamlined. So huge shout out to them. They suggest for decentralized institutions moving to a centralized scheduling practice. So that's something that we can dig into, consider things of that nature. So we've already talked a little bit about this, but I think we should just go ahead and pose the question again. So the second topic that really came up in this survey was planning for different modalities, whether that be online, on-premise, hybrid. So as you can see on your screen, many of our institutions are trying to figure out the right mix of offerings to meet various student and instructor needs. We talked about this a little bit, but let's go ahead and revisit this topic. How are you able to gather feedback on whether sections needed to be face-to-face with social distancing, if they should be online, hybrid? How are you gaining this feedback? How are you guys making these decisions? Who are you talking to? What voices are you hearing? What data? Let's go there.
Hi, this is Christy again, and we formed a classroom COVID scheduling task force. It was a lot of words, so hopefully I got that right. And it had representatives from all the different colleges. It had representatives from our student engagement and success division. It had a student on there. We had our associate provost, and we had these discussions. We met every week with a charge of getting a schedule out to our students by July 1. So we talked about the different modalities. I discussed a little bit about the blended and rotating hybrid modality, and that came to fruition from these discussing that, we wanted our priority was to make our first year students at our learning communities, to make sure that they had their face-to-face courses. And so we had these discussions. We came up with a chart that we have for our students to be able to see, because it is confusing. After we created our schedule, created these different, or updated the modalities, I should say, and we made it on our student schedule, it became very apparent that it was very confusing to students. It was very confusing for me, and I was sat in these meetings. So we are breaking these out. We made talking with the different departments and with the different instructors, and making sure that the instructors' needs were met, if there was any health issues, or how the instructional method typically was taught versus how it would be taught for fall, that was very important because of the certification that our faculty needed to be able to teach online. So you can't just go and say, I'm gonna teach online. We have to follow the necessary protocols to do that. So the different discussions with associate deans, and faculty in our office, and working with the Office of Distance Learning, we were able to come up with our different types of modalities and how it related to the different courses.
Wow, thank you, Christy. That is super neat to see that you are just really reaching out and talking to so many people on campus. Other institutions, have your faculty, are they piping up? Are they saying anything? If you are faculty, what are you thinking? I'd love to hear what's being said on campuses.
This is Christy again. I think our faculty were excited to engage. I do have to say, I thought that we would see a lot of faculty just rush to go online, or I see this with room scheduling all the time. They want to be in their room the whole time, and they only want to teach at this time. And so I was very pleasantly surprised to see the openness of our faculty to reach out and really talk to the students via Blackboard. The students they haven't met yet, and saying, how can this class, like, what are you looking for? We have a challenge with our on-campus living. The university does not own it. It is a contracted business. And so we are now facing the problem of some of these students whose classes went all online and that are living on campus. Their parents understandably are saying, we don't want to send our children and pay extra money to live in a dorm when they're just going to take classes online. And so now, we're really looking at to see, okay, if they want to stay, if they cannot get out of their lease, let's help them get into classes. And our advisors also have worked and partnered with us and the faculty to make sure that we can find different ways. And that's one part of the conversations that were had when we were discussing the modalities to begin with.
So another question that's come up on the forefront, and you also see it encapsulated in this presentation, is really that spring 2021 calendar. So how are we adjusting that spring 2021 academic calendar? Are we starting later, eliminating spring break? Love to hear feedback there. I know Caleb can talk about what other clients are doing, other partner schools, but we'll go ahead and open it up to everyone first. So how are you adjusting for spring 2021, your academic calendar?
This is Samuel Echeverria Cruz from Austin Community College. We did delay our summer registration timeline, and that worked okay as we had higher enrollment than we did last summer. I think looking at the data, we found that about the same amount of students took more classes this summer than last summer. We did the same thing, delaying fall registration, and then we also created a two-stage for a different two-stage approach for current, new, and current students. We compressed fall registration, so now we have no idea what's going to happen on the first day of class, as we are, we're either going to be 10,000 students behind, 5,000 students behind. Like, there's a real struggle with not knowing the pace, the slope of that registration phenomenon. So I think in the spring there'll be probably more discussions on how to balance, depending on the modality that we're all online in the fall. Almost probably 95% of our sections are going to be online. I'm the Dean of Liberal Arts, so 100% of my sections are online. But I think we're going to have to be far more careful about messing with registration, at least the timeline, because it really causes problems in staffing, as we don't know if we're going to have this upsurge in enrollment 2 weeks before the start of semester, 1 week, that'll get us back to the traditional levels we've had in fall and spring.
Wow, thanks, Samuel. It sounds like you guys are doing a lot. You made a comment about summer enrollments, how you're noticing that students you had more enrollments than you've had in the past. Is that what's happening now? Are you guys noticing that your summer classes are becoming more popular? Can we expand on that point?
Sure. We, in March and April, we had no idea what was going to happen. I think our head count was up almost 10% from last summer, but our credit hours were up almost 15%. This is one of those where we thought we might have a 10%. In April, we were thinking, are we going to have a 10% reduction in credit hours? We have a 15% increase in credit hours. That's one of those, I'm sure your colleagues here had these gut-wrenching discussions, but many students responded, at least in the late spring, to take advantage of a summer online with some policy changes. We continued our pass no pass policy, extended withdrawal dates, and had more flexibility around an incomplete policy. So that was really surprising. Will it carry over into the fall, and then especially in the spring? I'm saying this personally, but I think we should all expect the possibility of being, for those of us who've chosen to go all online, we may be all online this spring as well, or half of the spring. So these are a lot of questions that faculty and departments have to struggle with, because we're trying to manage. And of course, we have almost 10,000 dual credit students. So what ISDs do influences how we approach a lot of our staffing and scheduling.
Wow, so many factors playing into these decisions. I mean, my heart goes out to all of you that are having to have these discussions and figure out and look at, we're in unprecedented times, and how do we do that? I know Sarita had talked earlier about capitalizing on this change. Tom had as well. And so how are we capitalizing on this change? It's really interesting to just hear this discussion and see. So it sounds like, I'm looking at these chats, it's looking like THECB, their reports are showing that summer there's an uptick. We've also, Christie's noticed it as well. Seems like summer has really increased when it comes to student credit hour or enrollment. So, again, Samuel, you had said something that was very intriguing to me. You talked about how you were a little surprised that summer increased, but what will the fall hold? What will that hold? So I would love to hear, how are you guys navigating the quick changes and the change of pace that's immediate? How are these, emotionally, how are you navigating these conversations of, we don't know what enrollments are going to do, but we've seen an uptick in summer. What will the fall hold? I would just love to hear how those discussions are going on campuses.
I'm happy to chime in here just from a more state level perspective. This is Caleb again with Ad Astra. Certainly to Samuel's point, as we think about fall, there's the majority of the schools that we're working with, specifically from an analytics side, are expecting this uptick in the last month or so of registration. Most folks are down. I would say the kind of commonality is between 3 and 5% at this point as we head into early August, and the expectation, whether that be from assumption or in a few cases schools that have actually reached out and measured students with some surveys, is that students are going to hold off just to see what the modality situation looks like, what their experience was like in spring and potentially summer, because they do want to understand what the instruction is going to look like before they sign up for a full 15 credit hours or 12 credit hour term. So that does seem to be across the board. The general consensus from most of our schools is that there's going to be this enrollment uptick that maybe would be different than previous terms. We know, especially at the 2-year level, our data points to 20% of enrollment coming in those last 2 or 3 weeks. Historically, we're thinking that could be even more this year with some of these students holding off. As that, one of the interesting kind of assumptions that, or just pieces that I've noticed as I've worked with schools, it has very much for spring 2021 created this fearlessness and courage. As you guys have gone through, the 2-week turnaround in spring 2020 of going from a face-to-face to an online schedule in roughly two weeks, sometimes less than that, making the changes for summer, now all of this really thoughtful scheduling practices for fall, it has created almost this fearlessness for spring 2021 that I think is leading to what Samuel mentioned, that none of our scheduling timelines are really changing, because if we've in the previous 2 terms, we've pretty much weathered as much possible change as we could have seen. And thus, I think a lot of schools are holding off in hope and again, more of a fearlessness that even if we do have to make significant change for spring 2021, we've been through that not just once at this point, but twice. And so I haven't heard of a school yet in Texas that has significantly shifted their spring 2021 scheduling. As far as the time period and as well as the registration. So that does seem to be kind of one of the outcomes of having to go through the last 6 months, is that we're pretty much prepared for anything at this point as far as change in the schedule. And I think that's reflective in the idea that the spring schedule is staying pretty consistent at this point.
Wow, thank you, Caleb. That is awesome. It's really encouraging to see you guys just making those moves and really feeling like, you're moving forward, you're gaining this momentum again. So really exciting on just understanding that students are going to go onto your campuses and there's some sort of normalcy. It's not going to be the same, but something similar. So just like that, time is flying by. We've already went through a couple of our topics. I don't think we'll even make it to the third one. If you do have additional questions, things of that nature, feel free to throw that in the chat, shoot us an email, anything along those lines. I am going to switch through to more of our light quiz questions real quick. So what is the better George Strait song? Amarillo by Morning or All My Exes Live in Texas? I've been dying to know. Oh, exes live in Texas. Thank you, Christy. Oh, Amarillo. This one seems to be 50-50. All my exes is pulling away. Wow. So another quick fun one. Cowboys or Texans? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Yeah. Those Cowboys are loud. Oh, some Oilers here. Wow. We're Giants all over the place. So again, thank you so much for joining this discussion thus far. We're going to actually go ahead and transition into more of our product roadmap. So what you can be expecting, and then we'll go back to more of a conversation piece. So right before we go there, I do have to ask, is Texas Roadhouse authentic? My final fun quiz question. We're dying to know. Up in Kansas City, we love it. Oh no, it's not. There's better. I'd love to hear you weigh in on what is better at some point. So again, thank you for your participation. Thank you for answering these questions, going through the schedule. Everything else is better. That's great. Home cooking, wow, you know, some of you are great chefs. So we'll go ahead and shoot it over to Lisa Hunter. She is going to take you through our Ad Astra roadmap product journey, what you can be expecting over the next few months to next year, and then we'll go into some more exciting content for you. So thank you for allowing me to moderate that discussion. You'll see my face in a little bit, but now over to you, Lisa.
Thanks so much, Tara. Let's go ahead on to the next slide. So just want to take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Lisa Hunter, and in a former life, I was a full-time tenured faculty member and academic administrator for a number of years in the state of Montana and also in the state of New York. I'm actually in New York now. And just wanted to take a moment to thank you for your contributions to the Roundtable and kind of speak on behalf of academic administrators everywhere to say thank you for your service and everything that you are doing in the moment. I happen to be married also to a provost. I was my most recent position was as associate provost. So have an intimate understanding of what is going on in the administrator's life right now. And you know, if folks don't have the opportunity to say thank you, I just want to kind of extend that on behalf of those folks and to make sure that you're taking care of each other. That's what I'm so grateful for, these opportunities like the summit and the Roundtable, because it is really important that you connect with and support each other, because it is a really difficult time. And what we wanted to talk about here in terms of the product roadmap is kind of come back to this idea of the academic enterprise, but to really emphasize in terms of your own leadership, you know, and encourage each of you to really think of yourself as leaders. And Tom did a great job of really defining each of these areas at the beginning. So I'm not going to go through the definitions so much as just to talk about or provide an opportunity for you to reflect on how in your area of leadership, how these areas are important. It may be the work you're doing with us through the partnership, but it's likely there's other things that you're doing at your institution that touch on these areas. So let's dive into the first one, and being mindful that here the order that we start with in terms of infrastructure is by no means the most important, but I think it's most relevant right now. So Tara, if you want to move on to the next slide. As you know, Tom defined it, you know, really about those core features of our institution, and really the conversation here in the last hour is really centered on infrastructure, and that's what we're all dealing with in the moment. And to provide an opportunity for you all to just think about the importance of it. And what we know from research and bringing this back to what Sarita talked about is that equity imperative, infrastructure, is incredibly important. And now as we talk about it in the current times, the health and safety of our campus community, that infrastructure is so important. So when you are out there measuring 6-foot spaces in the classroom in the Texas heat, you know, being able to tap into that idea of how it is supporting student success and the well-being of your campus is not trivial at all. And sometimes in the day-to-day of our work, especially in sort of this crisis management mode that we're in, it is really important to take a moment and take a step back and to you know, keep that picture of your favorite student in mind who always comes into the registrar's office or who always stops by to see you, or one of your student employees, and to stay reminded of the reason why you do that work, because our students need us now more than ever. And so you know, when we're going through change like this without the proper infrastructure, that change is not sustainable. So as you think of the short-term infrastructure changes too, you all know from your partnership with us how important having the right technology in place, the ability to get that appropriate data is important. So, you know, being able to think about that at a broader level too, as you go through your work, and likely you're going to come up against areas where some of the infrastructure isn't as supportive as it needs to be. So, you know, you want to be thinking about that not only for the short term, but for the long term. And then we'll move on to the next slide, talking about pathways. And what I wanted to emphasize here is that it's not just in the design phase that pathways are important to kind of keep students on their progress or moving towards degree completion, but to be thinking about it all through their student success journey. So if we're doing our due diligence right now, you're going to see changes in pathway because their world is changing, right? So if we're being good stewards of student success and good stewards of our financial resources, we want to be constantly looking at our pathways. And it may be possible that in your leadership role, you have unique insight into that kind of data and the insight that pathway work actually needs to be done. So thinking of your leadership role in that realm. And then moving on to schedule refinement. This is what we've been talking about a lot today, so I know that I don't need to spend a lot of time here. And I think the conversation around, you know, the not changing the academic schedule and the registration timeline both fits in with infrastructure and in schedule refinement. And so it kind of just lends legitimacy to this dotted line that connects all of these areas, right? And so this process you have around schedule refinement, that infrastructure is as important as what the result is in that schedule refinement. And so I know that we're all oriented towards providing the best possible conflict-free and accurate schedule for our students as possible before they get entangled in late adds and cancellations and that kind of thing. So then we move on to enrollment health, and Tom talked about the complexities here, and the leadership imperative that I wanted to bring forward here is again related to that equity imperative and the promises that we keep to our students. And so often, in an effort to best serve our students, we want to offer as many options as possible. So those of you who are at institutions with multiple campuses and locations, we want to offer the ability to enroll in full programs at every location. And sometimes that is not sustainable for our institution, and we wind up doing a disservice because students can't quite complete the full pathway at a particular institution. Or there are other ways that we fragment our programs in ways that are unsustainable. So we, again, want to be thinking of stronger and more data-informed ways, more sophisticated data-informed ways to think about our enrollment health rather than just the head count that's in an academic program. And you and your colleagues are probably looking at ways, even though we report on headcount or we report on FTE, when we're thinking about health, it's not always the best way to be thinking about what's happening in our pathways and the relationship to student success. So we can really be thinking at those deeper ways, and that's uniquely related to instructional capacity and thinking about what we can truly support based on the instructional resources that we have, our faculty, our space, our technology, our infrastructure resources. What can we support when, like in a nursing program, for example, that has unique instructional needs, or that what do our accrediting bodies say? And so that enrollment health, that infrastructure, instructional capacity, right, all informative and indicative of the pathway. And the more that we're able to think about and align and truly capture what our instructional capacity is, the better able we are to orient towards student success. And finally, that leads us to, of course, the financial health. And I'm sure I don't need to spend a lot of time talking about the importance of financial health. But what we did want to say here is that as leaders, I think we all strive to, and to have the desire to know what the impact of our decisions are. So for example, if we're back in the schedule refinement circle, and intuitively we know that reallocating resources from a low enrolled section to relieve a bottleneck. For example, if I reassign a faculty member, intuitively we know that that's a smart financial decision and a strong use of a good use of institutional resources. But now we need to, in this kind of environment, we want to be asking deeper questions. So that the next question is, to what extent? So if I have limited leadership capacity and I have to make some decisions about which faculty I can reassign, I can be thinking about it to that deeper level. And this slide here is just thinking about from the top to the bottom. If we think about, we're at the top, we are, realizing our mission, and Tom stated this morning, our mission is some flavor of transforming students' lives. Well, the next layer down from that is that we build that strong curriculum to help students to help them realize that mission. And then we implement the curriculum through a pathway. And after we have the pathway designed, we implement the pathway through the course schedule. So we're on that continuum. And once we get to the course schedule, we have those finite resources to play around with. And so if we're always down in the bottom at the tactical level, kind of thinking about our time and our space and our faculty, and we don't go back up to those greater areas in the circle, we have sort of a limited ability and a fewer levers to impact student success. So if we're thinking about that full continuum all the way around that academic enterprise, that's one of the things that informed the development of that infographic for us, was really that kind of complete and all-encompassing idea of managing the academic enterprise. So Tom mentioned, and explained this slide and the philosophy behind Simon Sinek's work. And we just wanted, again, to give you the opportunity to tap into your mission in your own words, but more importantly, the students you serve, to reflect for a moment on Sarita's words today, and just to think about how you define student success, how you define your institution's mission. There's a reason why your institution is near and dear to your heart. And your commitment to student success is the one thing in all of this uncertainty that you can control and that you can count on. Every day, that your commitment is there, and that's why you're here today. And we just wanted to say that, again, we see you, and we're so proud to be partnering with you in this work. So use your mission, use your why as your rallying cry, especially on those days when the work is hard. And I know that is often right now, but we hope that you will be able to come up for air, support each other, and take those moments to not only look at what you achieved already in the spring semester and what you've done for summer, and feel really strong and good about that work, and be sustained through the fall and through the next several months. And with that, Tara, we are
We're off to the next exciting thing. Thank you, Lisa, for your wise words there. How beautiful of a picture to see that we are all taking time out of our morning to rally around the students that we serve, and that we really understand that there are all these different concepts that play into truly supporting that student and making those infrastructures. I applaud you guys for your commitment to these students. It is absolutely inspiring. It just makes me proud to work with all of you. And those that we don't work with, you are still doing amazing things in your industry, and that's just neat to see. So we're going to transition a little bit here into more of, so what does this mean? What does our infrastructure and our managing the academic enterprise graphic, what does that mean for Ad Astra, for our products? What does it mean for you as clients? So this picture that you're looking at is our product roadmap. So we've just had a really exciting year. And to be honest, it all started with reimagining the solution, right? And really understanding if we want to be customer centric, we need to hear our customers and their voices. And so going to a completely cloud native platform where we have like additional functionalities for this feedback and transparency and collaboration. So what you're seeing here is this year we were able in the end of 2019 to launch Align. So just that historical analysis perspective when creating that course schedule. That was briefly followed by Monitor, right, into 2020. And Monitor, obviously you heard it, Ricky had mentioned it, Jerome had mentioned it, Steve had mentioned it when they were talking about monitoring that enrollment process in real time, what that looks like, how they can make those real-time decisions. So we've also noticed you've seen some integration methods that have been improved when it comes to working with the SIS, the new platform for that friendly user experience, all these different concepts that are coming to fruition. So two key features in this product offering, in this map that you're looking at, is we really wanted people to be able to provide feedback directly to their teams, and then also measure their platform's performance and usage in real time so that they could quickly respond to issues as they were arising and make those changes. Like I said, we're thrilled that we have been able to produce Align and Monitor. You'll notice that Predict, Align with Predict is here, it's coming out. And so we've been really focusing our efforts on Predict recently. And this is going to be a module that really enhances the Align experience. It includes predictive analytics to forecast student needs for future terms. So that's what you're seeing here. For all of my Astra Schedule users, I'm sure you're going to be thrilled that you see Astra Schedule on the docket. We're going to be taking those use cases from Astra Schedule and implementing them into the Ad Astra platform here. So from section editing to requesting and managing events, the Astra Schedule customers, you'll be able to see these tools that you use every day in just a new, more performant, more stable environment, which I'm sure you're all smiling and beaming at. To also ensure that students are getting the courses they need when they need them, we're going to begin developing Simulate. So that is simulating real-time registration. Intent, including modality, campus preferences, things that Tom was talking about today in proportion to enrollment health. So how are we measuring this? Velocity, measuring student population speed to a credential, while highlighting those bottlenecks that slow them down. So what are the bottlenecks that we can overcome to help our students, our post-traditional students, that really model there. And just to equip you guys with the data that you need to truly make the right scheduling decisions. So lastly, if you see below, you'll see experience and impact. So something that we're also really excited about coming into 2020, 2021 is really focusing on measuring your investment with Ad Astra as well. So we would just want to be transparent about how you're using our tools, what the benefits of this. Something that I also thought was really cool. We went to a lot of product showcases recently, and just seeing, I can remember how many times have I heard someone say, well, my process is I email someone about this, and then I text them, or then I Teams them or something else. So really putting a just-in-time feedback loop into the application so that you can truly have all of your scheduling discussions in one place, so you're not just looking through all these different materials for your answer. So lots to be excited about into 2020 and 2021. I know 2020 has not been the year that we expected it to be, but we're getting excited for what the future holds. So that's our product roadmap. If you are interested in learning more about anything you've heard today, whether it's COVID best practices, scheduling practices, how do you meet your state initiatives or your strategic initiatives with your course schedule, maybe you're curious about how do you take this concept of managing the academic enterprise and put it into to play here. If you have stayed on the line with us this whole entire time, we are excited to offer you a 1-hour complimentary consultation with an Ad Astra consultant. The goal here is really, you've given us time out of your day. We want to give that time back to you to really tailor that discussion to whatever you are curious about knowing, hearing, things of that nature. So if that's the case, Luke's contact information will be at the end of this slide. You can reach out to him and we can go ahead and start that 1-hour complimentary consultation whenever you'd like. So exciting things. We also have a Texas community. So I've noticed it in the chat. We've talked about the Texas community. It is a place where you can go to have more discussions like these, to collaborate with like institutions, to leave comments, to discover your state trends, to learn best practices of your peers. We'll go ahead and be sending out a link in our follow-up as someone had asked. But Christy, I know you're active in this community, so I just wanted to, if you want to say a word or two about it, you know, what you're getting out of the experience, and then we'll continue.
Yes, happy to. So as you've been reading in the chat or seeing in the chat, you know, the Texas community, everything is different and bigger in Texas, right? I have this conversation with Caleb all the time about all the different scenarios in Texas. And it's good to know that, one, you're not alone in the things that you're being asked, whether it is Texas related or not. And two, just connecting with your Texas counterparts. I was reminiscing with my old boss and realizing that the Texas Summit was the very first Ad Astra event that I ever went to. We had gotten Ad Astra, or our office was responsible for it, about 2 weeks before the summit was being held. And so I just remember the collaboration from it, and that, and from the summits, since then I've gotten that same kind of collaboration, and that collaboration is now transformed onto the Texas Communities page. I know that I haven't been as active as I liked because I've been deep dived into COVID, but I know that, you know, people have posed some very great questions, and it gives you that opportunity to reach out to people that are doing the same thing you're doing. Maybe that you just need to ask a quick question. I know I often get asked when I want to change something, radically do something different, what are other Texas schools doing? And so this platform gives you an opportunity to quickly reach out to different people, whether it be schedule people, events people, academic people. And so it's just a very great way, you know, to go on there and to learn different types of comments about, you know, you could start new conversations, and it's just been really, really great. I know that I've get to talk to all sorts of different people, and it's been pretty much highlight of my day sometimes is just going on there and really looking at what am I doing. Maybe I haven't had time to even figure out what I need, and I can go on there and people are already discussing it. And so I highly encourage everybody to go out on the community and update your profile and make sure, you know, that you reach out to the different Texas people and make it the best that Texas is.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. And, you know, if you want to leave a strand about places for the best steak in Texas, I won't fault you for it. We can go ahead and do that too. But on a more serious note, I'd love to see the discussion there about all things scheduling. How are you aligning your schedule with your initiatives? How are you managing your academic enterprise? Great place to really join that community and have that conversation. Also, if you have you've been a part of this, you're learning quite a bit, you want more content, you want to really dive in, you heard what Sarita had to say, and you just want that follow-up of information, we actually have our Aspire 20. So Aspire has historically been done in Kansas City. Obviously, we are going virtual this year. It's just one of those years where we're going to bring our conference online, which is great news for you. No lines for the bathroom. You can stay in the comforts of your home and really enjoy the fun. But we're really excited about this. It's going to be October 19th and 20th. Registration's opening in August. So if you're interested, visit our website. Check out how you can get registered. You're going to be able to learn content based on what your desire is. So we have 3 tracks for academic leadership. We have academic scheduling track and an event scheduler track. So whatever profile you fit, if you would like to learn more, have more discussions, enjoy that content, we are inviting you really to come join us. It's a free event for anyone that wants the sessions. We also have a certification program. There's a little fee if you're interested in getting certified, but I'd love to just see some similar names, similar faces for Aspire. Lastly, if you want to continue the conversation, obviously Christy had mentioned that Texas community. We're also going to do another, birds of a feather meet together type scenario come fall. So just looking for a part 2 really to this discussion. You'll also receive an exit survey. So if there was stuff that you wanted to go over, you have any feedback, we'd love to hear your voices there. You can always reach out to Luke Carney, who started this summit. His email and phone number is here as well. But again, I just want to take the time to thank each and every one of you for the dedication that you spent to just come and have a conversation around all things the course schedule and student success, to listen to how we can overcome equity challenges in that post-traditional student, and how the schedule is a very meaningful piece in that conversation. And again, it does not go unnoticed that you take time out of your day to have this conversation with us, and we've just really appreciated you for your insight, your time in this discussion. So if you have any final questions, feel free to contact Luke. With that, I am going to go ahead and say that's a wrap. It was wonderful meeting all of you, and I look forward to seeing you in the fall.